you could. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for putting your info in the chat. My name is Sam Gillis. I am the Chief Program Officer at the National Runaway Safeline. I'm joined here by a couple of colleagues, Lexi Silvers and Christopher Smith. I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves and we'll get into the content.
Hi everyone, Lexi Silvers, Chief Engagement Officer here at National Runaway Safeline. So good to be with everyone here today.
Good morning or afternoon, depending where you are. I'm Christopher Smith, the Director of Marketing and Communications, and I also produce our Let's Talk podcast. Good morning again.
Thanks, Christopher. And I just want to take a moment too to acknowledge any of the federal staff that we have in the room. We are very generously supported by the Family and Youth Services Bureau within ACF. So thank you and welcome to all of the partners joining us on the call today. Today, we're really going to do an NRS kind of get to know us 101 and share generally about the programs and services that we offer, go through some of our crisis services data to help contextualize some of the young people that we are assisting and working with. And then we're going to leave today with providing you all with some resources that you can access at any time. And then we've got ample room for questions at the end. So please feel free to go ahead and put any questions that come up for you in the chat. We'll try to incorporate them as we go, but if not, again, certainly have plenty of time at the end for a little more free dialogue. So we'll go ahead and get started. Let me make sure I can click things. There we go. Okay. So we kind of just like to start off to contextualize the group of young people that we are working with and aiming to serve before we really get into what NRS does. So a couple of years ago, between 2016 and 2017, Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago did a massive study where they conducted a phone interview with about just north of 26,000 individuals, adults in households that either had young people in them between the ages of 13 to 17 or directly connecting with adults age 18 to 15 to just ask them a couple of questions about their experience of homelessness. And this is including the broadest definition of homelessness. So experiences with running away, being kicked out, or couch surfing. And based on those answers, what they found, or they estimated that nearly 4.2 million young people between the ages of 13 to 25 will experience homelessness each year in the United States. So what that breaks down to is about 1 in 30 minors, so that age group of 13 to 17, experiencing homelessness each year, and then 1 in 10 young adults between the ages of 18 to 25. That study is linked below here. It's called Missed Opportunities, Youth Homelessness in America. So really, then what that means is young people not only are experiencing homelessness or housing instability, but there's plenty of other intersectional issues that can come along with that. And there's also plenty of vulnerabilities that are intersected here that could lead to an experience of homelessness. But generally, young people experiencing housing instability or homelessness are finding or could find difficulty finding consistent or healthy meals, struggling with their mental health or their physical health, be exposed to violent situations, or struggle to attend or graduate from school. And there's plenty of other negative associated outcomes potentially associated with that experience, including abuse, other health challenges, substance abuse, etc. So with that in mind, we're going to talk a little bit about what NRS does to combat that epidemic. So NRS's mission is really to work with any young person or their families or supportive adults that are trying to assist young people to prevent experiences of homelessness, to work with young people that are facing crisis, and to work with any young person that's really considering running away or that's been asked to leave their home. So a broad spectrum of young people that are either at home experiencing crisis or already on the streets experiencing homelessness. We do that in a number of ways. So really from the prevention side to the intervention side. And broadly, we work with young people between the ages of 10 to 24. But really it can also fall outside of that spectrum as well in terms of the young people that we're assisting. And we support them through, as I mentioned, a variety of means. So that could be through providing direct resources, educational tools, trainings for individuals like yourselves in the field to be able to assist young people directly. And then also spearheading our National Runaway Prevention Month each November, or the massive campaign that we spearhead. Our largest program is operating the National Communication System for young people between the ages of 12 to 21 that are experiencing the issues that I highlighted. This is our hotline. So really what this National Communication System is when the Runaway and Homeless Youth Act was passed in 1974, it required that there be a place, a hotline, an information center for young people that are experiencing homelessness or that have run away to be able to reach out for support and operate 24/7 in a confidential manner. So we, as the National Runaway Safeline, are very fortunate, again, through our cooperative agreement with FISB, to be able to operate that hotline on behalf of young people. And then another really exciting program that we operate, and that's kind of interwoven through everything that we do, is our National Youth Advisory Board. It's comprised of young people that are between the ages of 16 to 23 at the time they enter the board, but they can stay on longer if need be. But really, their work is infused into everything that we do. I'm going to let Lexi talk about that in a minute, so I don't want to steal any of her thunder here. But overall, with all of the programs that we are operating each year, NRS is making over 125,000 connections to either help young people directly through our hotline, through our online resources, or through some of our other offline resources like providing trainings, etc., to folks in the field. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lexi briefly to talk a little bit more about our Youth Advisory Board, and then I will resume and talk a little bit more about our crisis services hotline, and we'll then move into some data that comes from that hotline, and then we will move on to more of our preventative resources and how you all can access those resources at any time. So Lexi, take it away.
Thank you so much, Sam. So yes, we're going to talk very sort of briefly about the Youth Advisory Board. We are going to be talking about this at this point in the presentation because it is critical for us at NRS to infuse and incorporate youth voice into everything that we do. And our Youth Advisory Board certainly helps us to accomplish these goals. So we're going to kind of set the stage, set the scene with talking about this group that really critically helps to inform some of the programs and services that Sam's going to get into. At NRS, we have a National Youth Advisory Board right now. We have about 12 members of young folks on our Youth Advisory Board. These are young people roughly between the ages of 16 to 23 who all have lived expertise and lived experience, who help to guide us on all of our program services, communications, and strategies. So right now they are meeting monthly, and I also do want to note here that we do pay them for their time. They're meeting every month to help to guide us in this respect. And then in turn, NRS provides them with things such as professional development opportunities and trainings. And again, these are professional development opportunities and trainings that they've sort of self-identified as being important to them and things that they need. So as a great example of that, one of the things that we've heard over and over from this group of folks is that they could really use some financial literacy training. So to that end, we found someone who is a finance professional, and she will be starting next month attending at least 2 of our meetings, and we'll be conducting a financial literacy training series for them. So that's sort of an example of what we then give back to this group of people who give so much to us. And then additionally, we have opportunities for these young folks to engage with and liaise with and network with and participate with national and local national leaders, policymakers, change makers, and certainly the runaway and homeless youth provider community. So that is a little bit about our Youth Advisory Board. You are certainly welcome to email us at any time if you have more particular questions about that. But at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Sam to talk a little bit more about some of our other programs.
Thanks, Lexi. So as I mentioned, I'm going to kind of separate this into our free and confidential 24/7 services, so our hotline work, and then our non-hotline work, because those things, while they integrate very closely, are very different. This hotline work is the space where we're really directly working with young people, their families, and any supportive adults calling into us or reaching out to us through various mediums about a specific situation, about a young person that they're trying to help. And then our other programs are supporting that, maybe sometimes directly, but also indirectly all of the time. So we're just breaking it up here kind of to make it make a little more sense and contextualize the data that we're going to share. So before we kind of go through these details, to help kind of, again, contextualize how we're able to respond to young people reaching out for support, you'll hear us call them contacts through the presentation, and that is really a form of outreach on coming from a young person, coming from a family member, an adult, or any person that's reaching out for support. We will call them a contact. So we're able to respond to contacts because we're made up of a really robust and amazing team of staff. So we have full-time staff, part-time staff, and then we have a group that we call respites. They're really ad hoc support that can fill in when we have gaps in our schedule. And then we have a really amazing group of volunteers that also support our digital services. And then often, most of the year, we have a group that usually ranges between like 5 to 8 clinical interns as well that are supporting this crisis work. So that's the immediate crisis team, the frontline staff. We also have some folks that are supporting that hotline staff, taking contacts directly themselves, but operating in a more managerial stance, like as shift leads. Those are our crisis services coordinators. We have a manager that's more of like an ops manager, and then of course a director of crisis services that's overseeing that whole team. Getting down into the nitty-gritty, how you can reach out and the services that we can offer. So there are two main ways to reach out to NRS for support. You can either do that through reaching out through 1-800-RUNAWAY or going to 1-800-RUNAWAY.org to access some of our services. So at 1-800-RUNAWAY, by calling that number, well, you can call that number or you can text that number. When you call, we have translation services available in over 200 languages, and then we also have the TRS service. Our live texting service is brand new as of September 23. So we are really getting in the groove of things with texting, and it's been an amazing addition to the menu of platforms that we offer. Over on 1-800-RUNAWAY.org, we have links to connect to our live chat service, our email service, and our online forum. So all of those 5 mediums are overseen and operated by our crisis services team. So anyone that reaches out for support through any of those 5 ways will receive confidential or free and confidential 24/7 support that is trauma-informed, solutions-focused, either focusing on crisis intervention. Most of the time that's the need. But if someone's just looking for information or referrals, that can also be provided with less of that crisis intervention work. That is the model of how we generally respond though. So in addition to kind of that general response, we also have a couple of services that are available by calling our hotline. And this is calls only. So our message service, conference calling, and our home free family reunification and transportation program. I'll explain a little more detail about those as we go. But I'm going to pause there for a second. These are the free prevention and educational resources that we'll be circling back to towards the end of the presentation. But all of those are available at 1-800-RUNAWAY.org. You can find things like our national data, our data reports, our state level data, on the website. And then we have a whole bunch of educational and outreach materials, links to our Let's Talk Runaway Prevention curriculum. I'll spend time talking about that. Our Let's Talk podcast is accessible through the website, as well as our blog, and then a whole bunch of NRPM resources. So putting a pin in that, we're going to talk about what happens when you reach out for support through the hotline services. So this is the philosophy we take, or our mindset when we're responding to any type of crisis contact. So NRS is non-judgmental. Find this really critical to ensure that any young person anywhere from any walk of life can reach out to us for support. And we're not going to judge the situation that they're in, judge who they are. We're here to provide support, build trust and rapport with them in order to get what they need. We are non-directive. This can be somewhat different than many other models of working with young people, children specifically. But we are here to listen to what's going on with them, ask questions to help illuminate some options for them or a plan that they might want to make for themselves. But we are not here to say, you need to do this. We are going to prompt them to think for themselves and work with them to brainstorm to develop a plan that works best for them. We are non-sectarian. So similar to the non-judgmental comment I made, anybody can reach out for support. We do not take any particular stance. We're not affiliated with any sort of faith or religious institution. So the work that we do is non-sectarian. We are honest. We find that very critical to building trust and rapport with young people, right? We are informing young people about the options available to them, and really working with them to uncover things that might not be as viable, or where there's a situation where they might not have thought through a situation entirely, and being really honest about what they can access, or thinking about what they could do next. And being real with them. Not being real with young people is not going to get you very far. So we find that honesty is the best approach in working with them, getting the information that we need in order to best help them, and then to ultimately get them either where they need to go or what they need. We are empowering. So anyone that reaches out for support, really, we are trying to put the reins in their hands. They know their situation best, and we are here to uplift them and help them make choices that work best for them, and help give them the confidence to know that they can make those choices. And then we are confidential. So I mentioned that before, but anyone that reaches out to the crisis hotline, we take a confidential approach. So the data that we collect is voluntarily shared. We may get some information about them, but we are not going to release that information unless there is a imminent threat, or it is something that would constitute a mandated report. We are mandated reporters. However, part of navigating that is also tied into being empowering. So when a young person reaches out to us, we very early on in the conversation let them know that we are mandated reporters. So there are limits to our confidentiality under XYZ circumstances. And so they are in charge of what they want to share with us, and what level of detail. Okay, that philosophy shows up really through our approach that we take. This is how we kind of navigate all of the conversations that we have. So NRS developed this 5-step solutions-focused crisis intervention model to navigate those contacts, and it incorporates a bunch of other approaches that you all have heard of. So trauma-informed care, of course, harm reduction, positive youth development, and solutions-focused brief therapy. Adding that all together, we came up with our model. So this model, it's stairs. It's not, the stairs are not meant to be, you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. The stairs are really meant to show that we are building on these different categories. So conversations with anyone that's experiencing any sort of issue or trauma, they're not linear, we know that. And then especially when you add children, depending on their developmental level. So these conversations can be somewhat circular. They really don't go from establishing rapport to establishing a plan in a neat order. But really, the aim of this model is to ensure that we're building on these different categories, if you will, or different steps in order to make sure all of these things get done in a conversation. So really, when a young person reaches out, we are going to try to start establishing rapport from the beginning, and we're going to do that throughout the conversation. But we're going to start moving towards establishing what are the facts, what's going on, and how does the young person feel about it. As we go, then focusing in on the main issues. Okay, there's tons of things going on, right, in your life. There's very rarely any individual anywhere that's only experiencing one thing or going through one thing. So given the whole context of what's going on, what's the main issue you want to work on here? What is most salient? What do you need to do next? From there, then we're going to explore options. This is all of the options afforded to anybody, but then we're going to then zero in on what's really viable here. What are you comfortable with? What's accessible? What have you not thought of that we could work together to move towards? So diving deep on what options look like for that individual. These are bespoke options, what's tailored to them. And then from there, really establishing a plan. What do you want to do next, and empowering that young person to develop a plan with our assistance. A plan could look like a bunch of different things. It really could be like, you know what, you've given me a lot to think about here. I'm going to go talk to my mom about what's been going on. That's a plan. And it could be closure for this moment in time and this outreach. It's not likely going to be closure of the whole situation at hand. A plan could also look like something much more robust, where we're developing a lot of safety measures and figuring out where a young person might be seeking shelter, developing a backup plan if that doesn't work. So plans really range in all relevant to the situation at hand and the circumstances that young person's going through. So that's really like the base of every call, or every contact that's reaching out for support. This is how we're approaching it. So as part of that, the exploring options phase, we have a whole host of resources in a national database that our team can access to provide to young people. So as of right now, we have about 6,500 agencies in there, including all of the FISB grantees. So the basic shelters, or the basic centers or shelters, TLPs, maternity group homes, and street outreach programs. But we also recognize, while those are really critical resources, they are not always going to fit the need at hand, especially when we're talking about young people that haven't left home yet or are not expressing a desire to leave home. So we also have resources in our database, like food pantries, links to our McKinney-Vento liaisons across the country, legal resources, mental health, substance use, just more traditional physical medical assistance, and then as well as relationships with Child Protective Services, or DCFS, across the country, law enforcement, and then other crisis hotlines, most of our national hotline partners. So really, like, the aim of this database is to make sure that if a young person is reaching out to us, no matter where they are or where they're going, that if the resource exists, we're trying to have it. So we can provide them any type of support that they need, whether it is they're still at home, or they're not at home, they've left home, or were kicked out of home, and we can point them in the right direction for someone that can help in their community. I mentioned there were 3 services that are only available by calling the hotline. Reason being for this is not to, we're really looking at like how we could expand this, but right now these services are really only available by calling because they're more extensive. They are not a one-off conversation. They require a little more back and forth with our team, and that's more difficult to do in a non-phone call setting. So first is our message service. Think of this as like NRS serving as a voice mailbox for a young person and their legal guardian. So oftentimes, if a young person has left home or they've been kicked out of home, there's a lot going on, right? So they may or may not be ready to have a direct conversation with a young person, might not be ready to have a direct conversation with their legal guardian, and vice versa. So this serves as a confidential, indirect method of communication to kind of bridge that gap, to let them know that they're safe or they're thinking about them, but they're not really ready to talk yet. So how it works is a young person would call into the hotline, and we would get their name, their info, and the name of their parent or guardian, their phone number. And then we would take a message that says, not ready to talk yet, but I'm safe, just wanted to let you know, something to that effect, or whatever they want to say, as long as it's appropriate and productive. What we then do is a member of our team would reach out to that guardian and deliver the message on behalf of the young person. Parent or guardian then can do the same thing, and leave a message for us, for the young person. Only difference being is that we will not proactively call out to a young person to deliver that message, because just for safety reasons, we don't know where they are, we don't know their circumstances, we do not want to cold call them. So what we do when they call in to leave a message is let them know that if they want to check if they have them, they need to call us back, at a time that works for them. So that's our message service, and anyone can generate the first message, the first call. Only caveat, as I mentioned, is that we do not proactively call out to a young person, but we do call out to legal guardians. What we hope is that that kind of initial touch point could turn into something like a conference call. However, conference calls happen independent of the message service, and they're also woven into some of our other programs. So conference calling is exactly what it sounds like. An NRS representative gets on a call between a young person and their legal guardian to help essentially like mediate the conversation and make it productive, move towards a solution. We often find that, right, when tensions are high, it's really difficult to get your opinion across, to articulate what you're feeling, what you're needing. Communication's hard. So we're there to be a bridge for that. That can happen more than once. That can happen a couple of times, but really the aim there is for NRS to serve as a mediator. Conference calling is a part of is a component of our home free program that I'm also going to share next. So our home free program, we're incredibly fortunate to be able to partner with Greyhound Lines. We've been doing so since 1995. And this program really is aimed to reunite young people with either their legal guardian, a family member, or a safe alternative living arrangement. And they do that through a free bus ticket. So there's some eligibility requirements from the NRS side and from Greyhound side of like how they can actually transport folks. But it's really available for young people between the ages of 12 to 21. And then we call guardian tickets. It doesn't need to be your legal guardian. It just needs to be an adult, or it needs to be a person 16 or older to ride with a young person. But those guardian escort tickets are available for any young person between the ages of 12 and 17. So if you're 12, you need to ride with someone 16 or older, but if you're 16, you don't have to, but you could have the option to have someone with you if you needed. There's also child tickets available for parenting young people. So 16-year-old has a 2-year-old child, and they are trying to get back home. We can provide a ticket for the 16-year-old and their child. And then before I get into the metrics, I mentioned the conference calling is a part of that. Young people reach out, and this is a youth-initiated program. So when young people are reaching out, we will ask them a series of questions to determine eligibility, what they need, where they're going, assess if where they're going is going to be a safe and stable situation. And we really evaluate that to the extent that we're evaluating or at the threshold of kind of a shelter program. So can you stay for a week or kind of up to 21 days? Could this fill a need that you have? And from there, we make sure we facilitate a conference call to make sure that this young person isn't just showing up at that location. We talk to the person on the other end to make sure that's going to be a stable environment for them and that they approve of receiving that young person, whether it's the guardian, a relative they've lived with before, someone the legal guardian approves of, a program that the young person is getting into, what have you. We make sure that both parties know what's going on and they both approve it. And since 2022, or in 2022, I should say, 234 young people used the program, and we provided 9 guardian tickets to travel with young people for that program. And since the beginning of the program, we have supported 18,000 young people to get back home or to get to a safe alternative arrangement. Okay. I've been talking for a while, so I am going to do an overview of our data and trends and turn it over to Lexi, but really broadly to just kind of frame this up. So NRS, right, through operating the crisis hotline, we have access to a really rich data set that can help inform the work that we do, refine the work that we do at NRS, but it also provides a whole lot of information for the field in terms of what's going on right now, what young people are needing, what young people are reaching out for support, if we notice any trends there and any gaps that we can fill. And it also helps us forecast what young people are needing longer term. So really giving us a lay of the land now and forecasting later. We can provide this information in a variety of ways. I mentioned before that we have our national data snapshot and then our data reports available on our website. We can do this at a more granular level too. The state snapshots are up there on our website, but if you have any questions about like your county or a couple of counties within your state, we can certainly pull all of that data for you on an ad hoc basis. But we're going to go over some data as it relates to our annual data report that we share in a minute here. And so we have been working with Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago for the last, that would be 4 or 5 years now, 2019, to really pull together all of the data that we have and analyze it to publish a report that pulls all of these trends and insights together to be available for the field. So I mentioned before as well that all of the data that we collect from young people is shared voluntarily. So this is a really rich data set, but it's also an imperfect data set. Like most of the national data sets out there, we're getting the information that's shared with us. And we really do that because we want to be trauma informed. It's not always appropriate to ask somebody a certain question if it's not relevant to helping them in the situation. We do often this information kind of comes up organically in a conversation, like I'm 12 and I need access to this, or if we're trying to find a shelter, we might need to ask for age and gender. But there's other questions that may not come up. If it comes up, we are recording it and we are pulling that information into this analysis. And we will also ask these questions at the end of a contact to try to get the information if we haven't collected it yet, but anyone has the opportunity to decline to answer that. So just contextualizing that a bit here, as Lexi starts to go through some more of the specifics, we're going to go through 2022 data. That is the report that is most recently released as of, I want to say, October. And it's available on our website, and we are beginning to work on our 2023 report now, but we're going to go over 2022 data. So Lexi, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Sam. Okay, so what you have on your screen right now is, outside of being a map of the United States, you can sort of think of this as a heat map of people who have reached out to NRS. So on the right-hand side, that's going to be the method by which they reached out. So you can obviously see it's 59% live chat, 33% hotline calls, and then 4% email and 4% forum posts. What is important to sort of note here is that this represents only the people who have reached out, right? So this is not representative of every young person who's experiencing crisis. This represents those who have called in or reached out only. So the more saturated the green is, what we've noticed is that the more saturated the green is, or I suppose I should say, over the years, it is getting more saturated because we are recognizing that people are calling in more and more over the years. And we actually see this as a good thing, right? Because it means that people are understanding that our services are available. They know how to reach out to us, and that we are reaching more people. So the fact that it is becoming a darker shade of green over the years, it is a good thing. And we're particularly seeing this kind of in the middle section of the country. Okay, so now we're going to look at youth location at the time of the crisis contact. And then this is, you can see the 42% that's kind of circled there. This is important to recognize because it means that 42% of youth who reach out to us are still at home at the time that they have reached out to us. And why is this important? It is important because this represents a moment of potential intervention for us, right? So you can see that there's 10% of youth that have connected with NRS that were at a friend's house, 8% of youth that connected with NRS that were on the streets, and 5% of youth that connected with NRS were at a relative's house. And that's why we see that the 42%, we see that as a critical moment that presents us with an opportunity to prevent youth homelessness. So that is why that is circled, and that is why we find that particular statistic particularly important. Okay, so this is going to be youth status at the time of contact. This does not always line up with location, right? So you'll see 44% of the folks are youth in crisis, and that means that 44% are reaching out to us experiencing crisis, but not necessarily having to do with a housing situation. So this could be, for example, someone is getting bullied at school. So it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with housing, but they are calling there. Then the second category would be contemplating running away. And that category is related to housing. So these are the youth in crisis and the contemplating running away are consistently within our top two categories. You can also see that 16% have run away, 13% are experiencing homelessness at that time, and then less than 1% are suspected missing or asked to leave. We're going to look at age, and then this is again the age of the people reaching out about a youth that is 21 or younger. So this is about the caller. This data, all of this data represents the person calling in for the services. And then you'll note at the far right, the 22 plus category, that's 24%, and that seems high. This means that the person is 22 years of age or older who is reaching out about someone who is 21 years old or younger. So on the flip, on the inverse side of this, it means that 76% of our data is about a young person reaching out about themselves or someone younger. Consistently, we see over time that the group between 15 and 17 is reaching out to us with great regularity. But then also importantly, the category of youth under the age of 15 that are reaching out is growing consistently over time as well. So here we have gender, and you can obviously see that consistently the individuals that identify as female are reaching out to us the most at 60%. Another important piece to recognize here is that 5% are identifying as transgender and 5% identify as gender nonconforming. So that's representing obviously 10% of our data. That is growing over time as well. And this is actually likely a good thing because traditionally members of the LGBTQIA+ community are a community that is overrepresented in the population of those experiencing homelessness. So the fact that that particular group is growing over time is likely good, because it may mean that they are trusting our services more, and that they are aware of our services, and that they are reaching out more consistently for support. Okay, so here we have race and ethnicity. And Sam kind of alluded to this earlier a little bit and set the scene for us. But again, just wanting to reiterate that all of our data is voluntarily shared. So not everyone is going to feel comfortable sharing their race with us. And we also, as Sam had mentioned again, that we also ask demographic questions and all our questions in a trauma-informed way. And so there are, of course, situations in which it may have been deemed not appropriate to ask. And I mention this because you'll notice that we have unknown as 30%, right? So that is a large part of why we have such a high percentage of unknown within this category. The other thing here, in line with some of our past slides, is that the Black or African American population, that's right now it's 18% for 2022 that are calling in. That number has grown over time as well. And again, we are potentially seeing this as a good thing, because it means this is also a population that is overrepresented in experiencing homelessness. And so as the years go on, it is our hope that this means that they are trusting us more and more, and that they are reaching out more for services. Again, we have American Indian or Alaskan Native at 1%, Asian at 3%, Hispanic or Latinx is about 11% of the population calling in, multiracial 5%, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander less than 1%, white Caucasian about 31%. The top issues identified. So 77% is going to be family dynamics, 28% emotional and verbal abuse, 25% mental health, 23% economics, 17% physical abuse and or assault. Family dynamics is consistently the #1 reason that someone reaches out for support. It is a broad category. This could be a number of things, such as issues with rules at home, perhaps there's a divorce, a sibling dynamic that is causing someone to call in. So a whole variety of things kind of go into that category. Emotional and verbal abuse is always typically #2 in this category. And then interestingly, within recent years, mental health has entered into the top 10, but since about 2020, like right around the pandemic, this has actually climbed up to the third category. And then economics has also recently emerged as being in the top 5. And again, sort of a broad, potentially confusing category, but this includes things such as lack of housing, unemployment, all of that kind of stuff. And then rounding that out, we have the physical abuse and assault at 17%. We'll talk very briefly a little bit here about the social media data and trends. Not everyone seeking support is going to be comfortable reaching out for support initially. So this is simply an idea of who is viewing our information. This can be sort of a first line way that someone finds out about our services. So they might see a post on Instagram and be curious about the work that we do in that way, and then maybe go to visit a forum. And so we don't know exactly who this is within our social media impressions and our forum visits, but it is representative of everyone who is viewing the information, or who had viewed the information in 2022. One sort of important piece to note here is that when you look at the NRS forum visits, and it's sort of denoting the page views by topic, legal issues and family issues are consistently the top 2 topics for that area. And now I'm going to pass it back to Sam to talk a little bit more about our prevention and educational materials.
Sorry, a minute to unmute myself there. Yes, thanks, Lexi. All that info is super important because those are the individuals that we are supporting in real time, right? And we're getting a lot of information about how we can support them best, or what are, especially like the top issues. What are young people reaching out about? Where is there a moment? We saw that 42% are reaching out before they've left home. How can we mitigate an experience of homelessness? So we have a bunch of prevention materials that are really aimed at just that. One of our largest, like most robust asset in that regard is our Let's Talk Runaway Prevention curriculum. It is available, as I mentioned before, at 1-800-runaway.org, and you can download the full curriculum. So it's not just like a worksheet about it, it's the whole thing. So this curriculum is a now 16 module life skills curriculum, really aimed at an audience of young people between the ages of 12 to 20. It's available in English and in Spanish, and you can really use it like anywhere a young person is. There's a lot of wiggle room there. So it can be you're working with a young person one-on-one. It could be kind of in like a community center type setup. In a school, clearly, it really depends on what you need, because the program's really aimed to be educating young people about what are some life skills that we can work on. If you do find yourself in a situation where you're really struggling and you want to leave home, what are some alternatives to doing to leaving home? If you do make that decision, what are your resources? Who can you reach out to for help? When and how to seek support from trusted adults, and then just generally increasing knowledge about any prevention resources that might be available. I say now 16 modules because we recently completed 3 new modules. This was originally a 14 module curriculum. We adapted one significantly and then created entirely 2 new others. So I'll get into what those are in a minute. But some of the benefits of this curriculum are, one, that it's free. Everybody loves that. It's evidence-based. And as I mentioned before, it's download and go. So you get on our website, you enter your name and email address, I believe, maybe one other thing, and then you can download the whole curriculum. So this curriculum can be used from start to finish, so module 1 to 16, or it can really be used like ad hoc or a la carte, depending on what you need. Even within the modules themselves, you can separate out and say, you know what, maybe this activity is not super relevant to the young people I'm working with. I'm just going to use the other 2. So it's really like malleable. Very user-friendly. It comes with a facilitator guide. So as the provider or as the adult providing the curriculum, not a lot of work for you to do. So it really will lay out it'll define the issue in case it's one you're not familiar with, give you like a quick blurb on that. And then it will say exactly like, state this, do this, ask these questions. It's really, really, really literal. And so you can obviously adapt that as needed, but it gives you all of the elements to be able to just take it, go, run with it, and implement it in your program. It also, as I mentioned, includes a bunch of activities. All the worksheets are built in there. So that's all at your fingertips. And then it also includes pre and post tests if you need to evaluate the efficacy of that module in your program or in whatever situation you're in. These are the original module topics. So it includes like an intro, like any sort of big reporter curriculum does, explains the methodology. But more importantly, these are the topics to choose from. So communication and listening, adolescent development, personal influences, not going to read them all here, drugs and alcohol, ways to reduce stress, internet safety, future life planning, sexuality and orientation. So tons of different topics that are relevant to any young person. And again, you can use them as you see fit or in life. And then I mentioned the new module topics. Internet safety and fun was changed to incorporate more information about social media because it is, 2024. So we got to get with the times. And then Mental health, super important. As you saw, that skyrocketed into our top 3 spot within the last couple of years. So we felt it really important to respond to that need. And then human trafficking and exploitation as well is the third module that we worked on. Human trafficking is something that young people that are that have run away or that are actively on the streets are more vulnerable to. And so we thought that that was a critical topic to be exploring from a prevention lens. Okay, so that's Let's Talk, again, available to download on the website. And then other items that are available to download on the website. So we have a whole host of educational and outreach materials, things ranging from like social media graphics that you can take and use, general brochures about what we do at NRS. Really important, a street outreach card. So things that you can hand to young people when you're working with them so they can keep the number on hand or ensure that they put that in their phone. A bookmark for stress or ways to deal with stress, a pull tab flyer, again, one of those things that you can post up in your program and people can grab it and go. And then a flyer that really details more of our home free program. And then we've got a couple of new ones too that I'll go through. We also, if downloading them is not your thing, we also have a materials order form. So you can enter your information and we can actually ship out this stuff to you directly at your program to use. These are some of our new educational and outreach assets that we're really proud of. So Lexi spoke at the top of this presentation about how critical it is to have youth voice infused, not only infused, but really generating everything that we do. Not only important to making sure that we're like guiding our priorities in the right way, that also we're talking about things in the right way. We can have all the best priorities, but if we're not saying things in a way that's going to resonate with young people, it's kind of pointless. They really informed this awareness campaign from start to finish, from the colors to the way the information, or to the way like the font is written, to the images on there, etc. They were involved every step of the way. One critical thing that they highlighted for us is in a lot of the imagery associated with this field, all of the young people pictured look really sad, right? But they reminded everybody that young people experiencing homelessness, that doesn't define them as people. That does not define their entire experience. It is a circumstance that they're experiencing, and they're dynamic individuals that have a lot going on in life now and later and before. So they thought it was really critical to show or represent themselves in more either neutral or positive ways. So you can see here, one of these images is from a member of our youth advisory board. He's on our youth advisory board. He's smiling in the image, and then we have a more neutral image in the middle here to kind of encompass that feedback. So those are two posters that can be used. The one on the far right is cropped for social media use. But this campaign is really aimed at the school-based settings, and it makes available a way for if you're in a school, you can take it and then put like your logo and incorporate some of your stuff into it as well. But really exciting awareness campaign that was informed from young people start to finish. That's all available on the website. And then, yeah, some NRPM resources. So National Runaway Prevention Month is the awareness month that NRS spearheads every year. Many of you are involved in that effort. Our federal partners are involved in that effort. A lot of community members are involved. And really the aim of that awareness month is to shine a light on the issues that young people experiencing homelessness or crisis are facing. And in order to help illuminate those things, we found it really helpful to provide a lot of resources for our partners to kind of grab it and go with it, run with it, make it easier for y'all in your community. So some of those assets are our toolkits, one oriented specifically for our like service provider type partners. Others are specifically oriented for our young people partners, so our youth ambassadors. I'll talk about them in a minute. And then we have a social media toolkit that really can be used by either party, anyone really, but it's focused specifically on how you can elevate this month during or on social media. Some of the other assets available as it relates to NRPM are templates for how you can reach out to like local government in your community or like a landmark to get it lit up green, how to reach out and get a local proclamation, really citing November as NRPM month, as well as a bunch of links to graphics and meeting backgrounds and all things NRPM related. You can get year round on the website, and this is the stuff from 2023, but we will have new stuff for 2024 that ranges, but there's definitely going to be some overlap in terms of what you can expect. So those are the NRPM resources that you can always grab. And this is, I mean, it's really specifically oriented for NRPM month.
Sam, I stopped being able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Still good? Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Not sure. That's the benefits of working from home. The NRPM work doesn't only happen in the month of November. So really, like, you can take this information and use it leading up to or preparing for November. Okay, and then I highlighted the Youth Ambassador Program. Really what this is, again, this is something that really kind of this work is saturated during the month of November, but we can have youth ambassadors working with us to shine a light on the issues that young people face all throughout the year. So really this program is a way for young people, whether they have lived experience themselves or not, to really be elevating these issues, designed for all young people. So they can work with like a club at school to be highlighting some of these issues or hosting like a community event, or things within their local community. It really engages young people to be able to spread the word and be advocates in their own right. And we also find that a lot of young people might not want to talk to adults about their problems, right? So young people are often the best advocates to be able to say, this is what young people are experiencing, and this is how we as other young people can be a peer, can be a supportive source to help them out. So really leveraging their expertise and their access. And then, yeah, as noted, they are participating in fun events that they're setting up in their own communities. We can provide resources for that, like that toolkit I shared. But we also can invite them to participate in national trainings and events, and get communication from us routinely to help facilitate those efforts. Okay, I think I got one more slide here. Yes, okay. So kind of to wrap things up, also wanted to briefly talk about our Let's Talk podcast. So our wonderful host, Christopher Smith, is in attendance here. And he has an incredible radio voice. So not only is the podcast entertaining, it's very, very informative. We started Let's Talk in November 2021 around NRPM. And it really is a podcast that's aimed at elevating the voices of young people again, and the circumstances and issues that they're experiencing in order to best assist them. Christopher talks to a bunch of young people directly on the podcast about their experiences and how they exited their situations, or who and how they reached out to folks for help, or what they wish they had, how we can be better. And then talks to a lot of other local and national partners about the work that they're doing. things that they find successful in their programs, things that they wish they had in their programs, really to just give the lay of the land of what's going on, who's impacted, what's working, what's not working in the field, so we can all better serve young people. In addition to being available on our website, this podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the like. And transcripts are available if you do choose to check it out through our website. So with that, I'm going to move on to our question session. But before I do that, I'm just going to share, first say thank you. Thank you for listening to us. We've been talking for a minute here, but if you have any additional questions or you just want to save this for future reference, this is Lexi and I's email addresses. So sgillis@1-800runaway.org and lsilvers with an S at the end at 1-800runaway.org. So I'll leave that up for a second, and Christopher, can you put that in the chat? And then we got time for questions. So thank you all. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all when you ask questions. Did we have any questions come up in the chat as we went?
Only if the slides would be available after the presentation. And yes, we will send up a follow-up email about this and the 2 other webinars that are a part of this webinar series. And a video of this recording will be available on our YouTube channel. So we'll make sure you guys have all of that after this.
I do see Amanda asked, how do we go about adding to your database?
Great question, Amanda. On our website, there is a drop down for service providers. It will say like, it will say join our database or become a partner. There you can submit a request to be added. You can also, it's the same form to kind of check on the status if you're already a member of our database, and if you maybe need to like update a phone number, contact, eligibility for your program, stuff like that. And then in response, like we will send you out a link where you can fill out that info yourself. If you all have any questions about that too, we also have a resource coordinator that manages all of that. And you can reach out to them at resources@, so I'll put that in there in the chat. Go. No problem. Any other questions? Data clarification, programs questions? Okay. Oh, I see one. Can you review the parameters for the Guardian tickets? Yes, I can. So let me go back to that slide for you. 1 second. Give me 1 second on that. But basically, the Home Free program, as I get this up, is available for any young person between the ages of 12 to 21 that meet further eligibility requirements. Sharing my screen now. Where's slideshow? Current slide. So any young person between the ages of 12 and 21, because of some regulations that Greyhound has, you have to be 16 years or older, 17 actually in the state of Illinois because of some state law, to travel alone. So Guardian tickets are available for anyone that's a minor in general, but they're required if you're under 16. So that could be like, say you have 2 siblings that are trying to get home. one is 15 and one is 17. They can travel together. The 17-year-old can act as the guardian because they're 16 plus for that younger sibling. But if that 15-year-old was trying to get home by themselves, they would need somebody to do that. The 17-year-old could travel by themselves. That being said, though, if someone is a minor and say they are 16, but they want to travel with a guardian, they can. Additionally, guardian tickets, we vet them to make sure that they're like a supportive person. They don't have to be the legal guardian. They could be like a service provider. So say you're working with a young person in your program is 14, needs to get back home to a different state. You as a provider, we could actually enable you to be the guardian to get them home and then get you your free ticket back to where back to your program. Did that answer your question? Any other questions? Okay. We don't have any other questions. We can go ahead and wrap up.